Hi, I'm Joan Newcomb, and today's Mystic Minute is reacting versus responding. I watched a clip of Obama talking at Nelson Mandela's, I don't know, it wasn't a memorial, it was his, anniversary of his death. And he threw out this term, reactionary politics. And mind you, I have learned so much more about politics in the last couple of years than I ever had before. I didn't grow up in this country. I don't know a lot about this government versus any other government. I spent 2/3 of my childhood in England, and I also went to high school in Canada, so I'm a little bit more parliamentarian in my understanding of things. But I step back and I watch what's going on from a bigger picture standpoint. And it was very interesting to see what's happening right now. The pendulum has swung. We're having a really extreme time. There's an emotional manipulation that is going on, and it is designed to keep us off balance. And there's an aspect of it also that is actually teaching people to hate. And it is going on both sides. So the other thing that I noticed during the election 2 years ago was reactionary on the liberal side as well, this whole democratic socialism coming up, and it was a real reaction to the gridlock that we've been experiencing for the last 8 years, and for some of us, the tearing down of social principles for the last 16 years. And there's a real reaction to feeling like your rights are being stripped away, and that big business and the 1% is having more power than you. So that's the other end of the spectrum. We've got the revolutionary reactionary on that side wanting to break that down, and then we've got the authoritarian side that is wanting to hold tight to its diminishing power. So it's coming off very strong, trying to do the white authoritarian, ultra uber beyond conservative, not really accurately conservative, extreme, we're seeing far right to this point of fascism kind of thing going on. I'm going to take my hand down because I didn't like the feeling of that. But both of those are either ends of the spectrum. And so it's interesting for me because I had just really been paying attention to this side and gone, well, that's a powerless stance. And that is actually reflecting things that are in the process of disintegrating. As our greater consciousness is coming into form, that's the part that's disintegrating. Anything that does not view all of us as equal, because as consciousness, we are all equally powerful. We are all equally capable. Anything that wants to diminish or limit other people, anything wants to dominate other people, that's actually a very weak stance. To try to dominate someone is putting your energy outside of you, and it's a weak stance. Anything that says somebody is less than, it's a weak stance, and that source of power is diminishing because it's not authentic and it's not true consciousness. And greater consciousness is coming into form, and it is shining a light on that which is false. That's fake. It is shining a light on that which is not in alignment with it, and it is disintegrating it. So you think about it, when the sun comes up or when you turn on the lights, the first thing you see are shadows. It's exposing the shadow. It is exposing where we haven't dusted. So it's actually exposing the areas in our culture and our society that we have been in denial about, or ignoring, or thinking it was deep within the woodwork, where actually it's it's hanging off our ceiling. And so that's very clear that's going on. And I hadn't really realized the opposite side of it as I'm pointing down to the people who are being reactive on the other end. But there's such good reason, and there are things that I agree with and believe in, and it's a very powerful force. And if you think about, what created this country was we were protesting against the domination from England and unfair taxes and all. So that's the same kind of power that is rising up. And yeah, yes, and some of that might be necessary to disrupt that. Yes, and what I realized and was able to articulate with the idea of reactionary politics is that reactionaries on both sides. And there is a powerlessness that they're reacting with. Not there, but you could be reacting with. So this is kind of a warning on how to come forward with your power. The ones that are being successful, I'm noticing, are the ones who just are really totally, they have their power within. And the ones that won the revolution back in the late 1700s, our founding fathers actually came from, if you think about them, they came from great intelligence and actually maturity and wisdom as they hashed out to create our Constitution and to create this country. I'm talking like I know something about American history. This is all I've just noticed in the last couple of years. But they came from an empowered stance. So I'm a little concerned about nuking everything to create a brave new world. If it's coming from a disempowered stance, it's not going to work. It's just going to, it could destroy. Now you can say, but they're destroying, look at how they're destroying the environment by selling our national park lands off to gas companies. All of that can get undone as quickly as it's being done, because that's the marvel that I am noticing with our country. Just like you're watching things that were 8 years of hard-fought work, looks like it's being undone with the scribble of a signature, but it's actually more complex than that. Bringing this back to an awareness of consciousness and coming from an empowered stance from within you, there's a way of coming forward with your power that is remarkable, is infinite power. And you see some of this in examples. There's a photograph of a young girl, offering a flower to a wall of police and riot gear. Or the Chinese student with 2 grocery bags in Tiananmen Square, and something similar up against a row of tanks. Similar thing happened, I've forgotten where it is, in the Middle East. There's another photograph out that's very similar, a guy standing in front of a military vehicle. If each of us come forward with that kind of internal power, then reality will reorganize itself. We don't have to burn the whole thing down to have a revolution. And this is what's really going on in the world, is that we are individually becoming more empowered. So what it is doing is shining a light within each of us and exposing generational patterns that are within each of us as well. We don't know how far back some of these patterns go. They're back beyond the stories our families could tell us. I really only know a little bit of my great-grandparents' story. I know that my grandmother's father was a hellfire and brimstone minister who was emotionally abusive to his kids. And there was a thread of emotional abuse that came out of that, a real kind of distorted way of how to raise children. That combined with a Victorian era of spare the rod and spoil the child, and don't be nurturing to your sons, you'll make them into pansies kind of thing. No one in my family said I love you, I swear, and they had a very funny way of showing their love. Those kind of threads are being exposed and disintegrating now. It's a time of transparency. It's a time of telling the truth. It's the time of being who you are in your clarity, and it looks like apparent vulnerability, but it is infinitely, infinitely powerful. So if you're a democratic socialist, more power to you. There's definitely a need for that awareness and influence in our world today. And I'd question dislodging Democrats that actually might be holding things together. They're not as bad as the other side. And was a Republican until I was 35. I come from a long generations of Republicans. And what we're seeing right now is not representative of that. This is part of what's been coming to the woodwork, has been something else that has been using one side or the other to play out power and control. Hey, the Mueller investigation might even find that some of this stuff happened 16 years ago. Money in the NRA. So how has that been influencing things? This is such a great, it is like watching a movie where you kind of know the plot, kind of can guess what's going to unfold, but you're stuck watching this TV series because you don't know what the script writers are going to write next into the storyline. I will say from my greater perspective of consciousness is that it's ultimately getting better. We are all too empowered for any of the shenanigans to really take effect. Although we can get pretty frustrated with what we're seeing right now. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens, to see a new wave come forward, and how reality is going to reorganize in a way where we're all more collectively empowered. And how you can apply this to your own life is take a look at your own imbalances. There's a part of us that wants to try to control everything, and there's a part of us that wants to rebel against everything. And how do you find balance within yourself? I'm feeling pretty frustrated with what I see going on, and yet there's also a call to take no action at this time. It's kind of a Yi Ching thing I got where it says take no action at this time, but observe what's going on and make choices and take actions from a point of clarity and a point of inner authority. So move forward if you're being called to do it, or don't move forward until you have some clarity with your call. And stay tuned because I'll be talking more about all these different things in future videos. So if you like this video, you can subscribe to it on YouTube. You can also sign up below to get this in your inbox. If you want to know more, my website is joan-newcomb.com. I have a weekly radio show and podcast. I write a weekly blog and newsletter. I do meetups around the Puget Sound, in Seattle, in Tacoma, and places in between. I have monthly webinars, and no matter where you are, if you want to know more about how to navigate your life as greater consciousness, have your reality unfold in ways beyond your wildest imagination, then go to my website, joan-newcomb.com, and look at my coaching programs. I have a summer coaching special right now. I have some special things coming up in the fall. So go to joan-newcomb.com, and I'll see you in another couple days for another Mystic Minute.